You see, most of us spend our lives trying desperately to hold on to people, to possessions, to ideas, to our very sense of control. Yet the more tightly we cling, the more life slips through our fingers like water. The secret is not in the grasping, but in the release. To let go is not to lose. It is to finally discover the freedom to live, to breathe, and to dance with existence as it is. The harder you try to control life, the more it eludes you. This truth is something that most people sense but rarely understand deeply. You might think that if you grip tightly, if you plan meticulously, if you strategize endlessly, life will obey you and bend itself into the shape you desire. But have you noticed how the very things you chase often slip further away? How the more you cling to certainty, the more anxious you become. It is like trying to catch the surface of a river with your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the less water you hold. Life, in its essence, is fluid, and the attempt to control it transforms it into something that no longer feels alive, no longer flows. We imagine that by control we will gain safety, but what we create instead is tension, resistance, and the strange feeling that joy is always one step ahead of us. This is not to say that discipline or responsibility is meaningless. They have their place, but when they are fueled by fear, by a desperate need to manipulate every outcome, they turn into shackles. Think about how often you have constructed an image of how tomorrow must unfold, and then when tomorrow arrives, it has its own will. The weather shifts, people behave differently than expected, opportunities arise or vanish, and suddenly your plans no longer fit. In that moment, you can choose to resist, to fight against reality, or you can soften, you can let the current carry you. Paradoxically, it is in the surrender that you discover strength, because you are no longer exhausting yourself against what cannot be controlled. You are no longer a swimmer thrashing against the tide, but someone floating, allowing the ocean to show you where it wishes to take you. The need for control comes from fear. Fear that without it, life will collapse into chaos. Fear that if you loosen your grip, everything you value will disappear. But observe the natural world and notice how it does not live this way. The trees do not control the wind, yet they dance with it. The birds do not control the sky, yet they soar freely through it. The clouds do not control their own shapes, yet they move with grace across the horizon. In all of nature, you will not find the neurotic obsession with control that you find in human beings. And so the question arises, why do we, who are also part of nature, believe that only through controlling every detail can we find peace? Is it not possible that peace comes when we trust, when we allow ourselves to fall into the mystery of life rather than attempt to dominate it? Think about love. The moment you try to control it, you suffocate it. You cannot demand that another person love you in a particular way at a particular time with the exact expression that fits your image. Love blossoms when it is allowed, when it is free. Try to trap it, and it withers. The same is true of happiness. The more you say, I must be happy, I must feel joy now, the more distant joy feels. It visits only when you stop demanding it, when you forget yourself in the present moment. This is the irony. By letting go of the need to control happiness, you stumble into it naturally. By letting go of the need to control love, you create the space where it can arise genuinely. And by letting go of the need to control life, you begin to live in harmony with it. When we cling to control, we create resistance not only in ourselves, but in those around us. The friend who feels suffocated by your expectations drifts away. The colleague who feels micromanaged loses the spark of creativity. The child who feels pressured to conform rebels against your rules. It is almost as if control is a signal to the universe that we do not trust it, that we believe only we know the correct order of things. But how can that be so? Consider the sheer complexity of existence. The galaxies spinning, the stars burning, the oceans rising and falling, the ecosystems thriving in perfect balance. This vast intelligence has orchestrated life for billions of years. Do you really believe that your small grip on a few details is what keeps it all intact? The truth is, humbling life knows what it is doing far more than we do. You might ask, but if I let go, won't everything fall apart? Letting go is not the same as giving up. It does not mean apathy, nor does it mean carelessness. Letting go means ceasing to impose your fear-driven demands onto life. It means engaging fully in each moment, doing what you can with sincerity, but not forcing the universe into the mold of your imagination. It means planting seeds, but not tugging at them every day to make them grow faster. It means trusting that the current of life knows how to carry you forward, even if you cannot see around the bend in the river. This trust does not weaken you, it frees you. It removes the weight of anxiety that comes from believing you must control everything. It allows you to breathe again, to enjoy what is here instead of worrying endlessly about what may or may not come. Think of the times in your life when you felt most alive. Was it when you were forcing every detail into place, or was it when you were swept up in something larger than yourself? A conversation, a piece of music, a moment of beauty, a sudden adventure. In those moments, control is absent. You are not thinking about how to manage the next second. You are simply immersed in what is. That immersion is life itself. To cling to control is to step out of that immersion, to stand outside the flow and attempt to dictate it. But to live is to participate, to let the dance move through you rather than trying to choreograph it entirely. The harder you try to control life, the more it eludes you because control is born from fear, and fear distorts your vision. Fear makes you see threats where there are none. Fear convinces you that security comes only from tightness, from vigilance, from rigidity. But true security is discovered in flexibility. It is like the bamboo that bends in the storm while the rigid tree snaps. When you let go, when you cease your frantic attempt to control, you become flexible, and in that flexibility, you discover resilience. The storm comes, yes, but it passes, and you remain because you did not fight against it. You allowed yourself to bend with it. The great irony is that by releasing control, you often find that life aligns more beautifully than you could have arranged. The opportunities you did not plan for appear. The people you did not expect to meet arrive at the perfect moment. The solutions you could not have calculated present themselves effortlessly. It is as if life is waiting for you to stop interfering so it can show you its wisdom. By insisting on control, you block the flow. By letting go, you open the gate. And what comes through that gate is often beyond anything your limited imagination could have created. So let this be your reminder: the grasping, the clinging, the endless attempt to control is not the path to peace. It is the path to exhaustion. The river of life does not obey the command of your hands. It moves in its own way, and the beauty is found when you stop resisting and learn to float. The harder you try to control life, the more it eludes you, because control is not harmony, control is not trust, and control is not freedom. Real freedom is found when you dare to loosen your grip, when you allow life to unfold without the constant interference of fear. In that space, you discover a serenity that control could never give you. In that release, you finally meet life as it is, fresh, unpredictable, alive. Letting go is not defeat, it is a return to the natural flow. Many people hear the phrase "let go" and immediately think of weakness, of surrendering a battle, of walking away in shame because the world proved too much. But this is not what letting go means at all. In fact, the very opposite is true. To let go is an act of profound strength, for it requires you to move beyond the illusions of your own mind. It asks you to release the need to impose yourself upon life, and instead to rediscover the rhythm that has always been there, flowing beneath every moment. Defeat is what happens when you resist the current and find yourself broken against the rocks. Letting go is what happens when you trust the current, when you realize that it has always been carrying you. It is not about giving up, it is about coming home. So often we mistake control for victory. We imagine that if we can force circumstances into the shape of our desire, then we have won. But think carefully. How many of your victories have brought you lasting peace? How many of the battles you fought to control people, events, or outcomes left you truly satisfied? Or did they simply leave you drained, preparing for the next fight, worried about whether the thing you captured might slip away? What if the truest victory is not in conquering the world, but in learning how to flow with it? When you let go, you are not bowing your head in failure. You are lifting your gaze to see life as it really is, rather than as you demand it to be. You are aligning yourself with the greater movement of existence, and that alignment is not defeat, it is wisdom. Think of the river. It does not battle the stones in its path. It does not rage against the bends and curves. It flows always with a quiet persistence that carves valleys and shapes landscapes. In its flow is power, not weakness. The river does not need to defeat the mountain. It simply moves around it, and in time, even the mountain bows to its persistence. To let go is to return to this same natural flow, to remember that your life has a current of its own, and that current is not your enemy. You were not placed here to thrash against it, exhausting yourself in endless struggle. You were placed here to discover the grace of moving with it. That is not defeat, it is a rediscovery of your original strength. Letting go feels frightening because we have been taught that control is safety. From childhood, we are told to plan, to prepare, to strive, to win, and there is value in discipline and in effort, but when they harden into control, they become prisons. You can build walls around yourself to keep out disappointment, but those same walls keep out joy. You can clutch tightly to a relationship because you fear losing it, but that same clutching chokes the very love you wish to preserve. You can demand certainty in your work, in your health, in your future, but the demand itself creates an endless anxiety because life is never certain. Letting go is not about abandoning responsibility, it is about releasing the illusion that you are the master of everything. It is about realizing that there is a vast intelligence guiding existence, and your task is not to dominate it, but to dance with it. Consider how often defeat comes not from letting go, but from refusing to. A soldier who fights long after the battle is lost is destroyed not by his enemy, but by his own refusal to yield. A lover who clings to someone who has already left suffers not because of the loss itself, but because of the refusal to release. A mind that obsesses over past mistakes or future fears is defeated not by the events themselves, but by the inability to let them go. True defeat comes from clinging to what is no longer alive, from demanding that the past remain present, from trying to freeze the river so it will obey your will. Letting go, by contrast, allows you to breathe again. It allows you to see that what you thought was the end is in fact the beginning of something new. It reconnects you to the flow, to the possibility, to the beauty that control had blinded you to. There is a story in every human life of loss. The loss of people we love, the loss of dreams, the loss of opportunities. At first, these losses feel like failures, as if life has betrayed us. We resist them, deny them, rage against them. But over time, if we are willing, we come to see that loss itself is part of the flow. The tree sheds its leaves, not in defeat, but in preparation for new life. The tide withdraws from the shore, not in failure, but as part of the rhythm that will bring it back again. The letting go that feels like loss is often the very thing that creates the space for renewal. Defeat is when you close yourself off, when you refuse to accept, when you harden against the inevitable. Letting go is when you open yourself to life again, even if it means stepping into the unknown. It is not defeat, it is courage. When you let go, you are not saying that life does not matter. On the contrary, you are affirming that life matters too much to be suffocated by control. You are saying that you trust the intelligence of the universe, that you are willing to participate rather than dominate. It is an act of faith, not blind faith in some abstract idea, but living faith in the direct experience of life as it is. You breathe in and you breathe out without needing to control the air. You digest your food, your heart beats, your cells renew, all without your command. The intelligence that moves through you is the same intelligence that moves the stars and the seasons. To let go is to recognize this, to trust it, and to allow yourself to move with it rather than against it. This is not weakness, it is alignment. It is not defeat, it is awakening. Ask yourself, what is it you fear will happen if you let go? Perhaps you fear that people will leave you, that you will lose control of your future, that you will fall into chaos. But look closely. Are these things not happening already, even as you cling? People come and go regardless of your grip. The future unfolds regardless of your plans. Chaos visits no matter how tightly you prepare. The grip does not prevent loss, it only prevents peace. The letting go does not invite defeat, it invites reality. And reality, though unpredictable, carries within it a profound beauty when you stop fighting it. When you let go, you notice the colors of the sky, the laughter in a conversation, the small wonders you missed while your mind was consumed with control. You rediscover the richness of the present moment, and that is not a loss but a gain beyond measure. In the end, letting go is a return to trust. It is remembering that you are not separate from the flow of life but an expression of it. The waves of the ocean do not defeat the ocean when they rise and fall. They are the ocean in motion. Your own experiences, your gains and losses, your joys and sorrows are the waves of your existence. To let go is to remember that you are the ocean, not just the wave. It is to release the small self that demands everything bend to its will and to embrace the larger self that moves with the rhythm of life. This is not defeat, this is freedom. This is the quiet power that comes when you no longer need to conquer the world, because you have realized that you are already part of its vast unfolding dance. Freedom arises when you stop clinging to the past and future. This is one of the most difficult truths to realize because our minds are rarely content to remain in the present moment. We are haunted by memory, by regret, by the endless replaying of what might have been done differently. At the same time, we are consumed by anticipation, by worry, by the anxious imagining of what is yet to come. And so we lie suspended between two illusions, the past which no longer exists and the future which has not yet arrived. In that suspension we suffer. We call it stress, we call it longing, we call it nostalgia or dread, but beneath all these words is the same experience, the refusal to rest in what is here, now. The strange paradox is that the freedom we seek is always here, waiting, yet we overlook it because we are too busy holding on to what was or grasping at what will be. Think of the weight of memory. How often do you replay conversations that cannot be changed, relive mistakes that cannot be undone, cling to moments of happiness that are gone? These are shadows, and yet they shape the way you move through the world. You may hesitate to love again because of a betrayal in the past. You may refuse to trust opportunities because of a failure years ago. You may compare every present joy to some golden memory, only to find that nothing now ever measures up. In all of these cases, the past has ceased to be a memory. It has become a prison. To cling to it is to carry a weight that life never intended you to bear. The past is a teacher, but it is not a home. You are not meant to live there. The door to freedom opens only when you lay that burden down. The future, too, seduces you with its promises and terrifies you with its threats. You imagine the perfect life that might unfold if only certain conditions are met, and so you wait, always wait for the real living to begin. Or you dread the possible disasters that may arrive, and so you live in constant tension, preparing endlessly for storms that may never come. In both cases, you are absent from your own life. The meal in front of you goes untasted, the laughter around you goes unheard. The beauty before your eyes goes unseen because your mind is occupied with what is not here. And yet the future you long for or fear is nothing more than thought. When it comes, it will not arrive as the future. It will arrive as now, as this moment, just as all of life always has. To cling to the future is to miss the only doorway through which freedom can be experienced, the present. Freedom, then, is not something you earn in time. It is not waiting for you at the end of some path. It is here the moment you cease clinging to what is not. Imagine the relief of dropping a heavy bag you have carried for miles. That is what happens when you stop replaying the past. Imagine the calm of realizing that the storm you feared might come has not arrived, and in fact there is sunshine now. That is what happens when you release the future. The freedom is not abstract, it is immediate. It is the lifting of weight, the softening of tension, the awakening to life as it is. It is not something that must be created. It is something that is revealed the moment you stop obscuring it with your attachments. The mind resists this truth because it believes that clinging is necessary. It believes that by holding on to the past, it can protect you from making the same mistakes again. It believes that by rehearsing the future, it can guarantee your safety and success. But look closely, does this actually work? Has worrying ever prevented pain? Has regret ever changed what happened? Or do these habits simply consume your energy, cloud your perception, and prevent you from responding freshly to what is here? True learning from the past does not require clinging to it. It requires seeing it clearly and then releasing it. True preparation for the future does not require anxiety. It requires presence, because only by being fully awake now can you respond wisely when the next moment comes. The irony is that by letting go of the past and future, you become more capable of meeting them. By living in the present, you carry forward the wisdom of experience without the burden of regret, and you welcome the future without the fog of fear. Notice what happens in the rare moments when you forget yourself completely, perhaps while listening to music, watching a sunset, laughing with a friend, or losing yourself in creative work. In those moments, you are not clinging to yesterday or tomorrow. You are here, immersed. And in that immersion, there is freedom. The chatter of the mind falls silent, the tension in the body softens, and you feel a lightness, a spaciousness that is unmistakable. That is the taste of the freedom that arises when you stop clinging. It is not something exotic or far away. It is not reserved for monks or saints. It is already within your experience. The challenge is not to create it, but to recognize what stands in its way, your attachment to time. The past and future are not enemies in themselves. They have their place. Memory is a gift. It allows us to learn, to connect, to honor. Imagination is a gift. It allows us to plan, to dream, to create. But when memory hardens into regret and imagination hardens into fear, they become chains. To use them skillfully is wisdom. To cling to them blindly is suffering. Freedom is found not in erasing them, but in loosening your grip. It is in remembering that the past is gone, that the future is unborn, and that the only life you can ever touch is now. This now is not small. It contains the entire universe. It contains your breath, your heartbeat, the sensations of your body, the colors around you, the presence of others. It contains joy, sorrow, silence, movement, everything. But to see it, you must release what is not here. When you practice this, even in small ways, you begin to notice the difference. You might catch yourself replaying a mistake, and instead of diving into the story, you pause, you breathe, and you return to this moment. You might feel your chest tighten with anxiety about tomorrow, and instead of feeding the thought, you bring your attention back to the sound of the birds outside or the feeling of your feet on the ground. In that return, however brief, there is a glimpse of freedom. And as you repeat this, the glimpses become longer, more familiar, until you realize that this is the natural state you have been searching for all along. The freedom is not elsewhere. It has always been here, waiting for you to stop looking elsewhere. It takes courage to let go, because clinging feels familiar. The past defines your identity. The future promises your security. To release them feels like losing yourself. But in truth, you are losing yourself. You are losing the false self, the one made of stories and fears. What remains is the real self, spacious, alive, unbound. You discover that you are not the sum of your memories, nor the sum of your projections. You are the awareness in which they come and go. That awareness is free. It is untouched by what has passed and unconcerned with what is to come. To live from that awareness is to live in freedom. So freedom arises when you stop clinging to the past and future, not because the past and future are enemies, but because clinging to them blinds you to the truth of now. And now is where life happens. Now is where love is felt, where joy is tasted, where growth occurs. Now is the only place you have ever been, and the only place you will ever be. To miss it is the greatest tragedy. To awaken to it is the greatest liberation. And so the invitation is simple: release the grip again and again. Let the past rest, let the future wait, and return to this breath, this moment. In that return, you will discover a freedom that is not dependent on circumstances, not bound by time, not fragile or fleeting. It is the freedom of being itself, and it has been yours all along. In surrender, you discover the effortless power of being. At first, This idea seems contradictory, even threatening, because from childhood we have been taught that power comes from effort, from control, from imposing our will on the world. We imagine strength as a clenched fist, determination as a furrowed brow, victory as the reward for endless striving. Yet the more tightly we grip, the more life slips from our grasp, and the more desperately we fight, the more exhausted we become. What surrender reveals is that the greatest strength does not come from resistance, but from alignment, not from domination, but from harmony, not from trying to become something, but from allowing yourself to simply be. And in that being, without the constant interference of control, you discover a power that is vast, silent, and unshakable. Surrender does not mean defeat. It does not mean lying down and letting life trample you. It is not weakness, nor is it laziness. Surrender means ceasing to fight against the way things are, ceasing to demand that reality conform to your narrow vision of how it should be. It means softening the inner resistance that constantly argues with life and discovering the peace that comes when you finally stop the inner war. You may still act, still choose, still create, but you do so without the tension of needing to force everything into shape. In surrender, action arises naturally, spontaneously, without strain. You become like a tree that grows not by forcing itself upward, but simply by being rooted and alive. That growth is effortless, yet unstoppable. That is the power of being. Consider the ocean. The waves rise and fall, crash and recede. Yet the ocean does not strain to do this. It simply is, and in its being all this movement occurs. The sun shines, not because it struggles to do so, but because shining is its nature. When you surrender, you return to your nature. You stop trying to be something other than what you are, and instead allow life to express itself through you as it already knows how to. The effort you release is the unnecessary tension of pretending to be in control. The power you discover is the effortless vitality of life itself moving through you. It is not a power you manufacture. It is the power that has always been there, hidden beneath layers of resistance. So much of our suffering comes from the refusal to surrender. We hold on to our ideas of who we should be, how things should unfold, what people should say or do. And in this holding, we create conflict with reality. Reality does not bend to our expectations, and so we are constantly frustrated. We believe that by tightening our grip, by planning more, by worrying harder, by controlling everything and everyone around us, we will finally find peace. Yet peace never comes this way, because peace cannot be forced. It emerges only when we let go of the grip, when we surrender our rigid demands and open ourselves to the flow of life as it is. In that openness, we discover that life is not our enemy. We realize that we were never truly in control to begin with, and that this is not a tragedy but a liberation. For when you stop needing to control everything, you are finally free to experience everything. Surrender also reveals a deeper intelligence moving through life. Your heart beats without your command. Your breath rises and falls without your effort. The seasons change, the earth spins, the galaxies expand, all without your interference. You are already being lived by a force greater than your mind can comprehend. To surrender is to trust this force, to align yourself with it instead of resisting it. When you do, you find that you are supported in ways you could never have planned. You find that synchronicities appear, that paths open, that the very energy of life seems to guide you. This is not the result of your personal power. It is the discovery of the impersonal power of being itself, and it is far more vast than anything you could conjure through effort alone. There is an ease that comes with surrender. It is like floating on water. When you thrash and fight, you sink. When you relax and trust, the water holds you. In surrender, you stop thrashing against life, and you realize that life itself has always been holding you. You realize that the effort was never necessary, that the struggle was never the way, and in that realization, you taste the effortless power of being. This power does not need to shout. It does not need to prove itself. It is quiet, steady, patient, yet unyielding. It is the power of the earth beneath your feet, the sky above your head, the breath moving in and out of your lungs. It is the power that has birthed stars and cradled civilizations, and it moves through you whenever you surrender. What frightens people about surrender is the loss of identity. We define ourselves by our effort, by our striving, by our sense of control. We say, I am the one who achieves, who wins, who directs. To surrender feels like losing this self, like fading into nothing. And in a way it is. The self you lose is the false self, the one built of fear and control. But what you gain is infinitely greater. You discover the deeper self, the one that is not separate from life, but part of it. The one that does not need to struggle because it is already aligned with the whole. This self is not fragile. It does not need to defend itself. It is not threatened by change or loss. It is spacious, timeless, connected. To surrender is to dissolve into this deeper self and to find that it is not nothing but everything. Look at the lives of those who have truly surrendered. There is a grace about them, a lightness, as if they are carried by something beyond themselves. Their actions seem effortless, their words spontaneous yet profound, the presence calming. They are not driven by the frantic need to control, and so their energy is not wasted on fear. They are free, and in their freedom is a quiet power that inspires others. This is not the power of domination, not the power of wealth or status, but the power of being itself shining through them. It is the same power that is available to you if you are willing to surrender. Surrender does not mean that life will always be easy. Challenges will still come, pain will still arise, loss will still occur. But the difference is in how you meet them. Without surrender, you meet challenges with resistance, and so you double your suffering. With surrender, you meet them with openness, and you find that even in pain there can be peace, even in loss there can be love. The effortless power of being is not the power to avoid all difficulty, but the power to remain whole within it. It is the power to trust that even when things fall apart, you are not lost, because you are part of something larger that cannot be destroyed. This is why surrender is not weakness. It takes immense courage to let go of control, to soften the grip of the mind, to trust the unknown. It takes courage to stop fighting and to simply be. But in that courage is the discovery that what you feared losing was never truly yours, and what you feared surrendering has been carrying you all along. You see that the power you sought through endless effort was always here, quietly waiting for you to notice. It is the power of life itself, and it reveals itself the moment you stop interfering. In surrender, there is a great stillness. And in that stillness, you hear what you could not hear before, the quiet wisdom of being. It whispers through the wind, through the rhythm of your breath, through the silence between your thoughts. It guides you not with loud commands, but with gentle nudges, with a sense of rightness that arises from within. To follow this guidance is effortless because it is aligned with your nature. You no longer need to force decisions because clarity emerges on its own. You no longer need to strive for meaning because meaning is woven into the fabric of each moment. You no longer need to prove your worth because being itself is worthy beyond measure. In the end, surrender is the gateway to freedom, peace, and power. It is the recognition that you do not need to control life to live it, that you do not need to struggle to be strong, that you do not need to become anything other than what you are. In surrender, you discover the effortless power of being, a power that is not yours alone, but belongs to the whole of existence. To live from this place is to live lightly, gracefully, fully. It is to dance with life rather than wrestle with it. It is to know, not just intellectually, but deeply, that you are already part of the vast movement of the universe, and that in your being, without effort, the universe itself is expressed.